Okay, we're pretty close to the end of our 2023 FRC Scouting app tutorial. In this video, we're going to be going over creating dashboards, and we're going to create one dashboard that should allow you to see all the stats that are relevant for creating a pick list or even evaluating a team that you're going to play with or against before a match. So let's go to our dashboards. Let's go ahead and click Manage, and let's add a new dashboard. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and name this one our overview dashboard. And we're going to go ahead, we're just going to leave this as tab 1 for right now. And let's start adding in some of the stuff that we did in our last video with all of our graphs. So there are a couple graphs that I want to have on here for the main first tab of the dashboard. I want to be able to see a team's score over time. I also want to be able to see where that team falls for their average score in comparison to a lot of other robots. And I'd also be interested in seeing the frequency of their cycle times. And we'll probably also go with their scoring spread as well. So these are 4 graphs that we're probably going to have in here, and we might add in a table here in a sec, but let's just get to styling these quick. So let's start with this guy, and let's make all of them just a little bit smaller so it's a bit more manageable. All right. So let's go ahead and let's put the scoring over time on the bottom, and we're going to elongate it a little bit so that way we can see all the matches a little bit easier. I'm also going to go ahead and get rid of its background. So open up border and background, go ahead and unclick that. Then I'm going to put this guy at the top right on the edge of this dude right here, and I'm going to get rid of its background as well, and that should show average scores. Then I'm going to go ahead and put the spread over here at around the same place as this guy. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and put this guy right here. And I'm going to get rid of both the backgrounds for these as well. Now, you'll notice this thing right here. It says select team num. If we make it bigger, you'll see it's select team number. And currently, it's modifying our spread graph. So we can select a team number and only see them show up on this spread. That's actually something I want for all the other graphs as well. So I'm going to go ahead and hover over these gray guys and click the ones that I want to have connected. So this one, I want to see a team's performance over time. I want to see that team's cycle times as well as their spread. But I want every team to be present on this graph so that way we can see where our team falls in comparison to everyone else. Let me go ahead and make this guy a little bit bigger. Perfect. Okay, so we've got our selector for this dashboard that'll help us kind of pick out what team we want to look at. All that's really left is I'm going to go ahead and move this guy up a little bit, and I'm going to give him a title that lets us know that this is all of the team's average scores. So all teams' average scores. Put that right on top here. Awesome, auto aligns for me. And the rest of it is team specific. So now it's a little bit more obvious what's going on here. You can do a whole lot of styling for this. Something I might suggest is we go ahead and move this guy up to some corner. And let's put lines in between him and all of the other graphs. And now we know that he's separated from all the other stuff. So now we can see, okay, this is looking at all the team's individual stats, and that one's actually looking at a one team compared to many, many other teams. Okay, so this is all nice and stuff. What I suggest you do at this point is go ahead and click that preview dashboard button. It should bring this up for you and let you actually select a team number. So you'll notice we haven't selected anything, so these are kind of pixelated out. But over here, we can actually see all the team scores, right? All teams' average scores. And if I go ahead and select a team number, say, team, let's see, 2056, now I start to get stats for them. Unfortunately, 2056 is one of the teams I only put in one game for, so let's grab another team like 33, and here we go. A little bit more interesting. I've got their cycle times. I know that they typically score a lot more in Teleop than they do in auto, although their auto is strong. And I can see that they've been somewhat consistent in their last few games, not so much that first one. Okay, so this is a really good start for our dashboards. Let's go ahead and click out of this preview here. And let's give this tab a name. We're going to call this one our overview. All right, now I want to create two more tabs. I want to create a Teleop tab, and I want to create an auto tab. So now we can evaluate the teams based on how good they are in Teleop, how good they are in auto, and we can get some of their details figured out. So to get started with the Teleop one, the first thing I want to do is I actually want to go make a table about Teleop stats that can be featured as part of this tab. All right, so we'll go ahead and click Add a New Table, and let's rename this to Teleop Tab, or Teleop Table, and click Save. All right, let's get into it. And I've already worked out what stuff I'm going to put in here, so I'll just lead you through what I've come up with. Let's start by getting the average Teleop score for a team. So average Teleop score, drag that in here. Okay. The next thing I want is the average number of cones scored in the high, average number of cones scored in the mid, and average number of cones scored in the low. Now, for those of you who have been following along in this tutorial, you'll note that we actually don't have the average number of Teleop items in the high, the mid, and the low. So let's go ahead and make those calculations real quick. All right, so you'll notice that we already have some stats here that can help us get to the average number of cubes and cones scored in all the different locations. So we have Teleop high items, Teleop mid items, Teleop low items, right? And we already know how to do those. So let's just do little subsets of those, and we should be able to get to this pretty quick. So I'll show you one of them, and then I'm going to speed through the rest. So let's start just by doing Teleop high cones. All right, so we're going to, just like the thing up there, we're going to go ahead and do a count, and we're just going to grab all of the buttons where someone would have clicked to score a cone in the high section. So that'll be cone scored left high, cone mid high, and cone right high. And it's that simple. I'm going to go ahead and do this for all the 5 others, for cone mid and low, and then cube high, mid, and low. Okay, cool. So we have a count of all of our Teleop items in the different areas in which they were scored. This will help us do 2 things. It'll help us determine whether or not a bot is primarily a cone or a cube bot. And then it will also help us figure out which bots can do which sections, high, medium, or low, so that way we can strategize with our team or pick the correct team and put them on our pick list. So now let's do averages for all of this stuff as well. So we're going to go to robot, and this should be pretty simple. So we'll just do average Teleop cubes high, and that will just be an average of the calculation that we just made. So we'll go Teleop high, this is for cubes, so Teleop high cubes. I'm going to go ahead and do this with the 5 others as well. All right, awesome. So we've got all those calculations done. We should be able to go and pretty easily add this to our Teleop table. So once we're here, we'll go ahead and we've got our average Teleop score, but we'll go to our calculated fields and we'll add all the ones we just made. So that's going to be average Teleop cones high, average Teleop cones mid, average Teleop cones low, and then we do the same thing with the cubes as well. Now you'll notice the table's getting a little long. That's okay. We're going to end up scrolling through a lot of the table as well. The idea is just to have a ton of information here so we can answer any question that a driver or another team or your coach might ask you when you're strategizing or coming up with a pick list. All right, so there's only a couple more things that we might want to know for Teleop. And those things are the percent of the time that a team engages at the end of the game, the percent that they dock at the end of the game, and how long they'll play defense. This allows us to figure out who is going to be docking and how many teams might attempt to engage, and what we can expect of each team, so that way we're not caught off guard if something bad happens. So let's go ahead and let's go create those calculations. You might notice, if you've been following along, that they don't exist yet. So let's go back to our calculations, and we're going to go to Robot. And in Robot, we're going to be making two things. One's going to be the percent engaged. Sorry, this is obviously in use somewhere else. I actually believe it's, yep, right here. So this percent endgame engaged actually already exists. That's my bad. We want to do percent docked. So we got percent engaged, percent docked. And if you look at percent engaged, we're going to do something very similar to this. But instead of looking for engaged, we're going to be looking for docked. So if we go ahead and go down here, we can grab our percent function, put that in there, and let's go investigate percent engaged on the other page, because we notice that it uses endgame engaged. So we go to tab 1, we'll notice what endgame engaged is. Endgame engaged is every time that endgame scoring equals engaged. We could go and make another one of these for docking, but I want to show off another way that you can use the percent function. So let's go back to Robot, and let's remember that endgame scoring is where all this stuff shows up, and go all the way down to percent docked. What we're going to do is similar to in here. Instead of looking for 1, we're going to look for the word docked inside of endgame scoring. So we'll go up here to text, we'll put docked, and then we'll put endgame scoring. So to kind of sum that up again, what this is going to do is it's going to look at every match that a robot has played, and it's going to find the percent of time in endgame scoring. So it's going to look at every match's endgame scoring and tell you the percent of times that that endgame scoring was docked. Right? Okay, very cool. So now we only have one more metric that we need to do, and that is our defense time, or average time spent playing defense. So let's go back to tab 1, and let's figure out for each match how much time defense was played. Let's go ahead and add a new calculation. And we're going to be using the delta function again, since the defense start and stop buttons are buttons, and we want to figure out the time between those button clicks. Now, if we look at our average match cycle times, right, we had to get the delta between every time a pickup button was clicked and then a placed button was clicked, and that gave us a big list of all the differences between those two button clicks, and then we averaged them out. In this case, what we're going to be doing is we're going to delta the difference between defense start and defense stop. And then once we have that, we'll have a list of all those times. We want to add them together to get the total time that defense was played. So let's go ahead and make defense time, and let's grab a delta, and let's find defense start and defense stop. Okay? So if we stopped here, this would just give us the every time we clicked start and stop, the difference between those two button clicks. But someone might have clicked that button or those two buttons many times during a match. So instead, what we need to do, we actually need to sum up the delta between those two, because we're going to get a whole bunch of times back, and we want to add them all together. So we do defense start, do defense stop, and this will give us the total amount of time that a team played defense in a match. Okay, very cool. Now, all we have left to do is, just like many of our other calculations, is do average defense time. And this will just be an average with the defense time put in it. So let's go defense time. And there we go. So now we should be able to go back to our table that we have been working on, click on the Teleop table, and we can go ahead and add in the calculations that we just made. So that'll be our percent engaged, percent docked, and defense average time. So percent docked, percent engaged, and the average defense time. Okay, pretty cool. Now we can go to our dashboard Teleop table and we should be able to put this in. So we'll go to Teleop up here. Let's go ahead and go to tables, and we'll grab our Teleop table. And let's make it take up a decent amount of the screen. Again, this table is meant to be kind of our primary piece of information on this tab. So we'll go ahead and put it here. We'll make sure it's pretty big. And we're going to make it so you can scroll left and right, because say on a phone, this might be really small and you want to make it so people can see everything. So let's go ahead and actually small up a little bit and make it take up a little over half the screen, and we'll make it scroll down as well. There we go. All right, pretty cool. Now let's go ahead and grab a graph. This will be the graph that shows us the difference in between the number of items scored, high, mid, and low, for any given team. Let's bring this guy right here, right next to the table, make him take up a bunch of space, and very cool. He also gave us a selector that allows us to select a team number, so let's put that in the middle here, and let's have that connect to both the table and the graph. Now, if we go to preview this dashboard, you should be able to see what we've done so far, including what we did on the overview tab. But let's go here, let's click 33, and you'll notice we get one line for 33 that we can scroll through. Look at that. All right, we see everything we might need to know about 33, and we can see that they do 38% of their scoring in auto and the rest of it in Teleop. Pretty cool. And we can feel free to select more teams as well if we would like. And you'll notice that 862, actually, if I select them by themselves, has a much higher score for low. All right. Okay, pretty cool. Now we just need to finish up auto. So what do we want to have in auto? Well, auto is going to be very similar to the Teleop table, or to the Teleop tab, in that we're going to make an auto table. So let's go to our tables and let's go create a new table called the auto table. All right, we're going to click on this guy. And what do we want to have inside of the auto table? Well, we want to have the average auto score. I want to know the average number of cones and cubes that a team scores in auto, the percent of time that they do mobility, and the percent of time that they engage and dock. So let's go ahead and let's actually see what of those we have so far. Let's go to calculations. So we know that we have the average auto score. So if we go here, we have average auto score. But we don't have a lot of these other metrics, such as average auto cone score. Mobility percentage, percent auto engaged, percent docked. So we only have the average number of auto cubes, cones, and score. We need to make those other three metrics. So this should be pretty similar to how we did this percent docked here. So let's go ahead and click add 3 new calculations, and we'll make this one percent mobility. So percent that the team gets a mobility bonus, percent engaged auto, and then percent docked in auto. All right, very good. So let's start by doing percent mobility. These are all going to look very similar and familiar with some of the stuff we just recently did. And I'm going to do the first one for you, and then I'll let you do the others yourself. So for mobility, we're going to be looking for yes inside of the mobility field that we created on our input form. There we go, mobility. So again, the percent of the number of times that the mobility field had a yes in it out of all of our matches for a robot. And then percent engaged and percent auto are going to be the same thing, but instead they're going to look for engaged and auto respectively. All right, cool. So now we've got all the stuff we need for our auto table. Let's go back, click on our auto table here, and let's go ahead and add everything in that we need. So that's going to be the average auto score, average auto cones, average auto cubes, and then we're going to do our mobility, auto engaged, and dock. So percent mobility, percent engaged auto, and percent docked in auto. Okay, there we go. We've got our auto table done. Let's go ahead and go back to our dashboard and let's build our auto tab. So we're going to go ahead and add in our auto table here. There we go. Again, very similar to how the Teleop tab looked. So we're going to have this take up most of the screen so we can have a bunch of teams on there. And we probably want a graph for this as well. And we could go ahead and make it very similar to the Teleop one, but just to show off some stuff, what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to go make a line graph showing a team's auto score over time. So let me go to my graphs here. Let's add a new graph, auto score over time. Click create. And I'm going to go ahead and do a simple line graph. And I'm going to grab my auto score, that's going to be my y-axis. And my match is going to be my x-axis. And then I'm going to have one line for each team number. And let's put that up just so you guys can see kind of what that looks like. Go to our graph sorting. Let's make sure it's sorted based on match number. Okay, very cool. And this should be good enough. Let's go back to our dashboard and add this into the tab. Now, feel free to play around with how you make everything look on the dashboard. For instance, on this one, I know that I want my lines to take up a lot of horizontal space. So what I'm going to do instead of what I did previously is I'm actually going to make the table really big. I'm going to make it take up less space vertically, and then I'm going to put it a little bit further towards the top. I'm going to grab that graph that we just made, auto score over time, and I am going to align it with this guy and make it take up a bunch of horizontal space as well as get rid of its background. Okay, there we go. Now, we need to make a filter just like we have for the Teleop. We have select team number up here. Previously, that's been happening because we had that in some of our graphs, but we need to learn how to do that inside of the dashboards ourselves. So click on Constraints and Filters, go ahead and grab User Select and bring it up to the top here, and it's going to ask you what field you want to constrain. Well, for us, we're going to be constraining team number, so let's click on team number and click OK. We're going to go ahead and make that a little bit bigger, put it right on the top of this, make it take up a bit more space, and we're going to connect it to both of these tables here in a moment. Okay, very cool. We have our dashboard done. Let's go ahead and click Preview Dashboard here. And we should see all of the work that we just put in. So all teams' average scores, you can see all the teams. You might say, wow, I'm really interested in 33. I can see them right there. We go ahead and select 33. You can see all their matches over time with their total score, as well as generally how they score. Are they more of a Teleop or auto kind of team? You can see their cycle times generally tend towards about 4 seconds. Okay, very interesting. Let's look at their Teleop stats. We go ahead and grab 33. We can see that their average defense time is about 392 milliseconds. They engage about half the time, but if they don't engage, they'll generally dock. They have a decent Teleop score, etc., and we can see here, same thing from the last page. They typically score a lot in high and a little bit less in mid, not in low at all. And then if we go to auto, we can go ahead and select 33 as well and see that their auto score generally over time, it went up at first, been going down a little bit since then. And all this just gives us a really good idea of what this team is about. And we can select multiple teams, look at a whole bunch of teams, but that's it for this video. So we have a dashboard that we can use. We've gone through the entire process of setting up and seeing our data. There's going to be one more video after this, just looking at how do you finish up your project, share it with people, and start using it as a scouting app.